Well, hi, I'm Mira, and I'm here together with Tanja from Other Tales Interactive, and we're here to talk about TickTock: A Tale for Two, our first game that we're making here on 𝙏𝙤𝙘𝙠 podcast.
And hey everybody, welcome back. Yes, it is the Rated R Show with 𝙏𝙤𝙘𝙠, episode 144, and not just that, it's the final episode of the year. Last week was the birthday episode, but we squeezed in another one because we had some awesome guests lined up that we just wanted to get in. So hey, you get a bonus. As always, my name is Christian, but hey, you can call me G, and with me across the pond, right here next to me, is my good friend Draconis.
You know, as much of a hard time as you give me about calling it another 𝙏𝙤𝙘𝙠 podcast, you like to confuse people and tell them I'm across the pond and yet somehow right next to you.
But you're right next to me in my heart.
Oh, G's going soft. Must be that time of year. So yes, we do have an interview this week. Back in September, I had an opportunity to go up to Seattle and to PAX West there. Had a great time getting a chance to talk to a bunch of different indie developers. And one of the folks I got to talk to is Tanja. And we've got both Tanja and Mira here from Other Tales Interactive to talk about their game TickTock.
Yeah. We met you at PAX, where we had a lot of fun showing TickTock: A Tale for Two, which is like a two-player cooperation game where you play on your separate screen, and then you have to communicate and talk a lot with each other in order to solve puzzles and also to figure out like the story of the game.
And Tanja, I still feel bad about that because I believe it was you that I spoke to, and I must have looked like a complete idiot because I know when you explained this, and then I'm like, but how did you handle crossplay? And you're like, oh, but we didn't. And you had to explain it to me, I think, twice because for some reason it just wasn't computing the first time because I was expecting some kind of complicated answer. And it was just, you guys have a very interesting way, a really cool way actually, of how you've managed to get the game on all kinds of platforms and not have to deal with the nonsense of crossplay.
Yeah, like we made this invention called human networking, which is that we don't do any kind of networking at all. So the devices are not connected. So it's only people speaking with each other that make sure that information gets transferred between the two devices. So it's kind of designed in a way so one player cannot progress without getting information from the other. And in that sense, we can control that both players kind of simultaneously go through the game together.
That had to be one of the coolest and most standout features I think I saw with all the indie games was how you guys took that approach. And G and I got a chance to play this the other night, and it's really, I mean, the game itself is fun to play and solving the puzzles is fun, but the interaction that you have with the other player, especially if you're in a situation like we are where you can't see each other's screens because you're separated by such a distance, that communication is really key, and it was really fun experience doing that.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear as well. So yeah, that's what we're looking for, to try to see like just different people playing the game together, and it looks very different. People's interactions with each other.
It can't really be stressed enough. The whole working together just in this game, it works very well. Admittedly, we only played chapter 1, but the notion that, oh, I'm looking at this, well, I'm looking at that, and this, we're explaining the screens to each other, we're trying to figure out what the other one's seeing, we're trying to piece sentences together or drawings or what have you. That works to a T. You really nailed that one really well. Of course, the most fun part was trying to, should I say, listening to Drac trying to say 𝙏𝙤𝙘𝙠 and 𝙏𝙬𝙘𝙠. Oh, Drac.
Yes, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we have a lot of Danish references and a lot of like inspiration from Scandinavian culture. So yeah, but it's quite fun. Like sometimes the people trying to say specific things. Yeah.
I was doing my best, even with a little help from G, but I think I was still getting it bad enough that it was kind of frustrating for him.
But it's also like as long as you understand each other and what you're talking about, then everything's great. Yeah, and you're hoping it's not vital for the information that you give the other player. The pronunciation.
Yeah, no, I think the bits of information that needed to be transferred were clear enough. Numbers, dates, directions, things like this.
Yeah, we've been working quite a lot on just trying to make it easier for the players to kind of like make a language for themselves. Like, so we don't want to make things that are super, super hard to say, or maybe there'll be some of that later, but it's just something where at least the frustrating part is not just how to say something, it's what you should say.
Yeah, I could imagine it's one of those where people in different regions, different languages, cultures, etc., will reference things the way they're used to, because it is fairly visual. There's text that has to be read to each other, etc., but a lot of it is visual. What am I seeing here? What does this look like?
Yeah, for sure. And there's also, we even see people sometimes when they're communicating symbols that they use their hands to form like triangles and squares and stuff like that. It's quite funny to see. Yeah. There's different words for a lot of the things there's in the game people play.
Yeah, I was utterly confused when Drag started talking about lollipops.
Yeah, it's called balloons or yeah.
It's funny because then as soon as you start doing that, you know exactly what the other person means when they start saying the same things, and that's really good. But no one else around you will have any idea what you're talking about. Yeah,
that is the good part of playing games like this in public. If the other person's not there, like if you have them in your ear, you start waving your hand around, you start gesticulating to nobody and saying weird things, and everybody around you is going, that person might be mad.
Yes, yeah, we're hoping people will start playing this like on the train to work or something, that they will do that, and people will be like, what are they doing? What are they up to?
Yeah, what's going on?
It's like a performance in real life.
Well, then they have to play it on the Copenhagen trains.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's one of the things that seems really great about this too, because it's going to be so widely available. You can do that. You can take it with you, on your mobile device and play. I know I'm jumping a little ahead here, but since we're talking about that anyway, which different platforms, so the folks listening will know where they can find this, which different platforms is this going to be available on?
So the full game will be available on Steam and itch and like on PC and Mac, and also for iOS, Android, and Nintendo Switch. So pretty much all of the platforms.
Yeah, all the portable ones.
Yes.
I'm saying it has to be on Switch, definitely.
Yeah. But there was a great fit for that, for sure.
Yeah, the game worked really well on PC. I can definitely tell that some of the mechanics seem a little more targeted towards a touchscreen, but still, even with the mouse, it worked perfectly fine. And visually and the way that the game works, I think it's perfect for a mobile title as well as something like, on your Switch or on your iPhone.
Yeah, also, we designed it for phones, basically.
Yeah.
And then we realized that we're releasing this for, two people have to play the game. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them to play it, so they can play it on any device that they want. But that's also why the interaction feel it's more for phones. Yeah,
at least right now, more targeted towards phones and swiping. We have a lot of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When G mentioned it being funny watching somebody not knowing what they're doing, but I have a feeling that this may actually be kind of fun to watch somebody in like a Twitch stream where, you've got two people, maybe you can see each of their screens or their cameras trying to figure out these puzzles. And, of course, the commentary going on the sideline.
Yeah, we've been seeing some streams online the last couple of days, and people have been commenting and trying to help people out and things as well. That's been really fun to see.
Yes, it's been super fun.
Yeah, I think one of the things we might want to try, I should say there's a demo out. Drag and I only played the demo, but I was thinking to stream it and go, it's just a demo, it might not be that interesting, might reveal too much. Having tried it, I definitely want to set up a stream in the full version. Drag on Twitch, me on YouTube. People can tune into both or just one, get whichever experience they want. I think that, not necessarily with us, but that could be interesting to watch. Seeing people struggle through the game and just gesticulate, wave around their hands at the screen because the other person at the other end in another continent or next to them just doesn't understand what the lollipop is.
For sure, yeah, it's kind of like two teams, trying to work together, but still, trying to figure things out as fast as they can.
Yeah, and just having that separation, also for the audience, that if they're only getting one side of it, that they can participate in trying to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. It's like kind of playing the game yourself without actually playing, but you can still guess along.
So we should probably ask some questions about you two as well, because, you're here to talk about the game, yes, but it's also interesting to know who's making the game. So, Mira and Tanja, how did you even get started on this and getting into game development?
Yeah, we had some different journeys from how we got to making games. I've been playing games since I was 6 years old or something, but never thought I would work with it. Been doing more writing stories and things like that. And then really was really excited to see just the community within the game industry, that people are super friendly, everyone seems to be helping each other, which is awesome. And just the fact that you get to make something that other people get to experience, that they get to.
Yeah, and it's also, we met in university where we were both studying a master in game design. I hadn't been playing a lot of games actually. I was studying literature, and then I kind of stumbled into the game design class and just found like how cool it was to I figured out how cool it was to tell stories with games as well. Like, it was a completely new medium for me, and I was super excited, and also, as Mira say, like, super excited about how people were working and actually making something as a group that wasn't there before was really cool. And then Mira and I made TickTock as part of our master thesis, actually, because we're both interested in stories and telling stories with games. And then we're like, what about if we make something for 2 players so they can share a story together? And that was where it all started.
So is it just the 2 of you that have worked on this project, or were there others involved that helped out, or you sourced out different parts of the game too?
So me and Tanja, we've been making most of the game ourselves. Like, Tanja is making pretty much all the art in the game, and we're doing all the designing and writing together. And then I do most of the programming. But then we've been working on this game for like 2.5, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the last year or so, I think we got in a animator/graphics programmer. And we've also been working with a sound designer. But there's 4 of us total working on this game.
A little tight team of 4.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good sized team for, I mean, you're targeting to some degree mobile platform, etc. First game, that seems like a good size. You can kind of get people to do what they do best without having to, shout at a whole group of people. Which graphics artist is doing this? Who's doing that? You avoid some of the project management headaches.
Yeah, it feels like a really good sized team, actually, and like also awesome that we grew from 2 to 4, because being 2 people, and we didn't know how to make games before we started making this one. So we've been learning like programming and drawing and designing as we've been going. So then when we got our animator and second programmer in, we were really excited just to see how much faster things were going. And now we can also do things as fast as we go.
Yeah, and also just like adding these small extra things. That's a lot of what Andreas he does. He adds like camera effects and like light effects and stuff like that, where it's like kind of combines what Mira and I do and kind of, makes it a really nice combo.
But I gotta ask, that master's thesis then, where's that? Mm-hmm. Have you passed it already, or are they waiting until the game's out?
We luckily we passed it. We wrote the master thesis in like half a year or something like that together with the game.
So around like 3 years ago.
Yeah, so around 3 years ago. And then we kind of jumped into making a company and being full-time developers straight after graduating. So that was really cool.
Yeah, so we try to find, like in the thesis, we try to find games that were similar to what we wanted to do. And there was like nothing that's exactly the same, but there are things that are a little bit like just co-op and communication games as well. But that was cool to see that there is not anything out there that we wanted to do.
Yeah, I think I'm at a loss to think of any game exactly like yours.
I think that's one of the things that really made it stand out too, which is a good thing, was that it did have a real unique feel to it.
Yeah, that's cool to hear. Yeah, we've just seen games like one that might be a little bit close, as well as also We Were Here. It's a co-op online puzzle game.
Yeah, that was one of our playtesters who mentioned like, there is actually some resemblance here, which was really cool. We still need to play it and see how good we are at cooperating together.
Yes.
Usually we play a lot of Magic together where we fight each other. So we have to see if we can cooperate as well.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned a little bit about working on the artwork, and I'm a little bit curious. What was the inspiration for the story that you guys are telling with the game, and also for the artistic style that's being used in the game?
Yeah, we've been trying to look for inspirations in other places than games. So, and also we both come from like a literary background, and and movie background I want to say, but we've been watching movies when we were kids. So I don't know if you've seen Jumanji, the old movie, where there's like some kids that get sucked into a board game and they have to finish the game, otherwise things go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, that's pretty much what this game is as well, or parts of that. And then also we've been inspired by the Danish fairy tale, what's it called, The Nightingale, by H.C. Andersen. And then the art style sending us some inspirations as well.
Yeah, the art style kind of developed over time because, as we mentioned before, like we had to learn a lot of things, and I also had to learn how to draw and choose what style and stuff like that. And in the beginning, we were super inspired by Song of the Sea and kind of this cut-out, hand-drawn feel. So we actually also in the beginning had much more like line work in the game, and then at one point that kind of disappeared, and it kind of own thing.
Yeah, so it became less fairy tale and more airy in a way.
Yeah, like I think I continuously tried to make the game a little bit darker, also in the art style. So, and also I've learned new things, and then when I learn a new thing, then I'm like, now we have to add that, and then I add it everywhere, and yes. So, but yeah, Song of the Sea was a main inspiration, and then it feels like the cutout feel is also that it's kind of a made-up world a little bit as well, because it is a world that's created by Emily.
Yeah, I think we were talking in the beginning about making some sort of like puppet show, but that kind of thing cut out where you can like pull on a string and someone's arms go up, like that kind of feel. Yeah.
Don't know if I'm completely off here, but my impressions were there is a little bit of Nordic noir in it, what we've seen of the story and the setting and the visuals. I don't know if...
Yes, yeah, definitely. There's also a bit of, it's also something we hear a lot. And I think it's not something maybe we have thought so much about, but I think maybe it's just because we've been influenced by it, because it's a lot in the Danish television shows and series, and there's a lot of this more like bleakness and moodiness in a lot of the televisions and series here.
You might have been watching too many of those Swedish crime drama thingies.
Yeah, the Bridge.
Yeah.
The one where it's both about Sweden and Denmark at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say, I haven't actually watched the Danish version. I've only watched the American version.
There's an American version?
I didn't know there was an American version. That's cool.
Yeah,
maybe it's less grey.
It is less grey.
Yeah.
It's more burnt yellow. It takes place U.S., Mexico, the Bridge of the Americas, the Freedom Bridge.
Oh, cool.
In that's Ciudad Juarez and El Paso. Damn, I've crossed that bridge many times.
Cool. Yeah, we have to look into that. So then maybe inspiration for next game.
But I can say, just to wrap that one up, in England they showed both, and apparently the audience preferred the Scandinavian version. But that might just be.
That was really good. But it is just very dark.
But yeah, on the visual style, also, I think you mentioned basically cutouts. It has that, I might be old, but that older Eastern European style. They had a lot of animation that was particularly cut out, and characters moving around with stop motion, basically. There's a little bit of that in the way you laid out the scenes. There's not a lot of characters in what we've seen so far.
Yeah, for sure. And there is also some of the characters later on that has a little bit more of that kind of animation feel, where it's a bit cut out and like kind of jitters a little bit. But we also think like that's super cool because it makes it a little bit eerie as well. It's not exactly like smooth. Yeah.
Now I'm trying to remember an old cartoon, actually a Danish one, of a little girl who lives with mice. Ooh, that's from the 70s, early 80s.
Oh, that sounds also a bit scary. Is it a scary one?
No, it's a children's cartoon. It's quite cute. A small girl, she lives with mice because she's that small, and she teaches the mice schools and stuff. But I don't know if I remember it.
Cirkeline.
Cirkeline, that was the one actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I love Cirkeline.
Yeah, apologies. I even have kids. I have the DVD somewhere. I should have remembered that name. It's just lost somewhere. But yeah, that's sort of the same thing again. The whole stop motion with cutouts.
Yeah, that's true.
One of the things I really enjoyed about that particular art style is that it kind of projects like a more relaxed type environment to play a game in. There's a few games I've played on Steam. I think Little Acre, where it was like a cartoon. Everything was animated. Everything you did on screen was animated, but it looked like an old school kind of cartoon. And it kind of just, at least to me, it projects this like more relaxed, like fun environment rather than high pressure, got to get things done. There's no timer or anything. So that kind of, at least from the get-go, gave me the impression that, this is a much more relaxed, fun experience with another player.
Right, so we've been trying to make sure that it feels like that as well, or that it's a thing that you can do in your own time. Like, you don't have to be fast, you don't have to do something in a specific time.
Yeah, because the central thing is also just being together with the other person and figuring out something together and sharing the story together.
And at least for the two of us when we played, it was great that it wasn't timed, because we did get to one point where we had to figure out how to move the clock forward, and that took more than a few minutes.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's supposed to be challenging, at least. That's good.
Just one of those where you go through every single screen and click everything. When the bushes were twitching. I wonder if there's something in the bushes. No. Okay, there's a bird flying around. Nope, that's not it.
Yeah, at least the bird sometimes gets... Oh, no, I don't want to spoil anything. I'm going to stop my sentence here.
No, it was excellent. It was good fun playing it. People who are catching this on the YouTubes will probably be seeing our gameplay in the background. And if you see us just clicking everything, that's the part we're at.
Yeah, but it's all about exploration as well. Like, you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know what puzzle it is that you're supposed to solve. That's all about like exploring the world and also talking to the other player, what they see, to kind of find out, okay, what is it that we should be interacting with.
Yeah, so in that sense, we don't give that much help in a way. It's kind of just putting you in a world, and then
So what was the thought process that, like, then when you've got a story you want to tell, and then you've got to figure out, where you want to put puzzles in and how you want to develop those puzzles? What was the thought process like behind all of that?
Yes, we've been working very much like simultaneously with both the design and the writing, because first of all, we usually researches what Danish things there were in that specific time or that specific year, and then we kind of see what would be a cool thing to interact with and what could actually tell a story. So there in the first chapter, we have a radio, which is that's just a normal thing to hear things from. So then we decided, let's use that for a puzzle. So there's been things like that we've been trying to combine in a way to make it feel natural that the text is there.
Because it comes a little bit in layers where we either have like, oh, now we want to tell this, or it can also be that, oh, this mechanic is cool, or this device is cool, and then we kind of try to mash them all together, so we're both like getting the interaction that we want, but also getting the story that we want.
Now you're making me ponder that radio. That wasn't an old bakelite, was it?
I don't know, actually. I just looked at a bunch of old radios from the 1930s, and it's kind of a mashup of different radios to avoid some copyright things. So we a lot of the devices are kind of made up, but still has the vibe from the type of radios that were at the time.
Yeah, that's where my background in store probably shows up, remembering old B&O bakelite radios.
Awesome. We'll have to look it up and see if it's close to that.
Yeah. I did read a lot of B&O radios on my way, I can remember.
Well, I can recommend that one. Just look up the history of it. That was a bit of a revolution in how to shape the outer casing of a radio. Sorry, design nerd.
Cool. That's awesome, though. Yeah, I should totally look into that.
Drag, am I boring you again?
See, you get all technical with it, but when I saw it, it was just old-timey radio.
Then you both get something out of it, then. Here, it's from a while ago, and what specific
brand. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least I recognized it as an old-time radio. I think my little one might look at it and not even know what it is.
Yeah, that's also very interesting. We've been seeing like younger people playing the game where you have to like read time a lot and try to figure out what time it is, and many people don't know how to read like hands of the clock. It's all digital now, so we're like, "Ooh, this is see how well it ages."
Yeah, it's really like a timepiece.
Well, that's interesting. So you've been watching streams of people do this stuff. Are there, besides just the clocks, are there other places where you're watching people get stuck that that stands out to you?
Good question. I'm trying to think if there was something.
Yeah, it's usually a bit different, and it's usually if people are not communicating with each other. If you're trying to solve a puzzle on your own, you will not get very far in the game.
Yeah, I think I've seen someone saying like, oh, I'm in a house. There's like different locations in the game where someone says, I'm in a house, and the other one says, I'm also in a house, but they're in different houses. That means like, oh, they might be saying very, very different things.
Yeah, and then I guess also with the communication, if you're like, Mira also said, like if you go to completely different places, or one player wants to be in X place and the other player want to be in another place, and they don't agree, and then they just go separate ways. Also happen. But at least they at one point they will find each other again. Yeah, in the world.
Well, that's the great thing about the way this was built. You have to find each other because you won't get any further if you don't.
Well, curious, are there puzzles that can be done just by one person? Or do all the puzzles require cooperation?
I think there are a few where you can figure something out yourself, but you then need the other player to figure that same thing out. So that's in that sense that you're both trying to, there can be a little competition there, like who comes up with the thing first. But yeah, because you talked about one of the puzzles earlier before, which is...
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because it could be practical in some cases where people start to, let's say, disagree slightly on what's going on, and they can go off and do something themselves, and then come back once they cool down.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's usually always something to experience yourself, and then you might not know what that experience is meant for, but you can like go roam around and try to find some things and interact with things to get things that will help you later. And then if you remember that, then that's awesome, because then when your friend is finally on the same page as you can start talking about what you both have found.
Then on the story itself, is that the same element that you have to work together to actually figure out the story itself? Is there an element that you're only telling some of the story to player one and some of it to player two?
Well, like there's some of the text where you only get half, and then the other player gets the other half, and then you kind of have to read out loud to each other. There's different there's little snippets of text between the chapters, and but it's not right now. It's not that there's. Now I'm looking at Mira and trying to is this correct what I'm saying? But I think it is. That it's there is different information on the two devices. So in that sense, you have to talk in order to put the story together.
And I think you also kind of see different parts of the story. You see the full story, the overarching story is the same for both players. But you'll find also as the chapters, chapter 2, chapter 3, you'll find different things that differs a bit. And then that will tell more of the story in a way. So
yes,
yeah. Sorry, I guess what I'm getting a little bit towards is once we're done with the game, are we still talking to each other to figure out details of the story, to exchange details, exchange experiences, or does the experience itself just end when the story ends? A little bit like two people who read the same book can still have different impressions, but in an interactive medium like gaming, where we're playing it together, the differences will be fewer and it's more directed by what you show on the screen.
Hope that people will talk about the story and talk about what they experience afterwards. You can also see already on this first chapter that we have seen that some streamers are playing the game once, and then they actually also swap the devices, and then they play the other side of the game as well, and are also surprised by, oh, you had this or that. So I guess that's also a way of getting to know what the other side is, and then you can, of course, also just talk about your different experiences.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing once you play the full game, it depends on how much of what you see you've explained to the other player, because you might have seen things they don't think is relevant for for the puzzles, for example, but that might be a big part of the story. So if you talk about the game afterwards, you might realize like, oh, what? I remember that thing. Like when you see the end, you're like, okay, maybe that thing was connected. And
Yeah, we're trying to leave like little clues in the text that leads up the ending. So hopefully there will be stuff to talk about. Like, oh yeah, I already saw that, and that fits with this, and so on.
Okay, so it isn't just the butler did it, end of story.
no, it's big. We're so like engulfed in our own little world here as well. So we're like, okay, yeah, wait till people see. It'll be exciting at least.
Yes.
Now, you have a Discord right now, at least for the beta. Are you keeping that open afterwards?
Yes, we are. We also wanted to make it so people could find like a second player to play the game with. Didn't have anyone who we wanted to play at that specific time. So we made like little rooms where you can go in, only 2 people, and play the game through there. And also, if you want clues or things, people can help you with that as well, because that's the goal with it, at least. And that's what we're seeing right now as well.
Yeah, we see like people are helping each other. And
Yeah, notice people, they were quite nice to not spoiler things too much when they were helping.
Yes, that's awesome. I think someone wrote like a walkthrough, which is awesome. So if people get stuck in it, if they really want help, they can go through that as well.
Yes. Yeah.
That means once a game is out and people have played it, there's a place to meet others who played it and discuss the story.
Yeah, that's also really cool to see what parts of it that you saw that you think might mean something.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about through this is I remember there was a part where you and I got a little bit stuck, and at one point I was wondering if we were going to have to restart the game and switch roles just to see if a difference in perspective would help us out. And I liked how they were talking about, the folks would play through the entire game and then switch roles just to see what that difference in perspective is. That's cool.
Yeah, because we've also seen people, like, at least when they play like together, if they sit in the same room, and they might like show their screen a little bit to the other player and be like, okay, can you help me out with this, please? And then go back. And that's also, you could do it online if you just share your screen with the other player, if you want to. But so there's a kind of like an inbuilt cheat system in there as well.
Man, we didn't get that smart.
Cool, we told you before you can play second and third level.
Jack, we're old. All this newfangled technology and screen sharing that's too new for us.
Yeah, it's funny. We think about doing that when it comes to a meeting, but not when it comes to playing a puzzle game.
We were literally trying to do it afterwards. We played the game and then had to discuss some graphics. And he was trying to share screens. Like, why didn't we do that while playing?
Because in the moment, it's also cool. Like, you get lost in this world in a sense as well.
You kind of do. It's not super filled in with details all over the place. It's kept in a nice, simple visual style, but you still go, ooh, what's behind there? And why is that bird flying around? And what does this mean? Why is there a button missing here? Yeah, no, you get into that world, definitely.
Cool. Glad to hear that as well.
So we should probably ask, when's it coming out?
Coming out in the start of next year. So right now we're just saying Q1 2019.
Q1 2019. Fair enough. Are you doing it episodic, or will we get the whole story in one go?
We'll get like the whole story. We'll make 3 chapters in total, and the 2 next ones will be like a little bit longer than the first one.
It's kind of like instead of watching a movie or instead of actually going to like a real life escape room, you can also just play it online or on your phones.
Yeah, because it's kind of difficult getting dragged into an escape room.
Yeah, then you can do it. Oh, okay. I was like, yes, I don't know. But you played this one. I'm glad.
That's how I escape. I don't go into the first place.
It's so simple.
Yeah, it's simple solution.
Well, there is actually one nearby. Some of our actually very first guests on the show, their storyteller is running an escape room, but she's working on one that I want to go try over in France. But it's expensive to fly drag over.
Yeah, that's a shame. Maybe you can bring him on Skype or FaceTime or something.
Oh,
he can solve things with you. Yeah.
Telepresence, that would be an idea. Then I also need to teach him French.
Yeah, fair enough. Soon the technology will catch up with us, and that won't be a problem for you either.
Yeah. Well, it's almost there. I think IBM is working on something automatic translation.
Cool.
But then afterwards, so game comes out Q1 because you don't want to tell us any more details on that. What afterwards? Will there still be other tales?
Absolutely. Yeah. Sure. And we'll see what we want to do next as well. I think we're kind of seeing what happens with TickTock, and then go from there. But we know we're gonna do more like atmospheric narrative experiences.
Are you aiming to be the next Telltales? Like keep the style and just tell stories?
I think we haven't decided yet, actually.
No, like we're kind of going with the flow, like see where it goes. And also just allowing maybe the next phase also to be spend a lot of time on being creative and brainstorming on a lot of ideas, and kind of also take that episode, I almost want to say, but make that a chilled version as well, because when you make TikTok, we were also writing our pieces, and
I don't think we knew that this game would take so long time out of our lives, which has been really awesome. And we wanted to first make the game as kind of like a portfolio game for our company. It's like, okay, let's do something a little bit weird, I want to call it. And then we're like, oh, well, people like it. Let's make it bigger.
And then it kind of took off.
So we'll see what happens for the next one. If we also just think or do something different, and then it just goes somewhere completely else.
We might also just spend a week, come up with a thing, and then just spend it on for years. We'll see where the wind blows.
Well, some of our recent guests literally call themselves Red Cabin Games because in between games they go to a small red cabin in the Swedish woods. Just brain farted the hell out of it, see what they come up with.
That's wonderful.
That's cool.
Yeah, because we started also this game in a red cabin. Like we were part of like a Swedish accelerator program called 𝙏𝙬𝙘𝙠, which is just the name, that's the Swedish name for cabin. And that was awesome.
That one actually fostered quite a few things over the last couple of years, so that seemed to be kind of successful.
Absolutely.
It's super cool concept, like 20 different developers going there every year.
Need to look more into it.
When you mentioned the release date being the first quarter of 2019 is what you're targeting, will it be releasing on all platforms simultaneously, or will it release to some and then to others later?
So far, we know for sure that it will release for computers or Mac and PC, and for iOS. And then we'll just kind of see how it goes with the other ones as well as we're developing the game. But then they will come out like as soon as we and within first half of the year, we're thinking.
Yeah, I think I need an Android version. Definitely an Android version.
Yeah, cool. We're working on it. Yes.
And to allow me just to jump all the way to the beginning, because Drag said he met you girls in Seattle. That's the last I checked, not near Copenhagen. So have you been running around to a lot of conventions with this game?
Yeah, we've been around, like definitely a lot in Europe, and then we were also at PAX, which was really cool to see Seattle as well. Like a giant event. I think that's the biggest. And we were also at UC, but like PAX was really big, but also just a lot of players, which was cool.
Yeah. But the game is really taking us around the world, we like to say, because we've been to Helsinki, Finland, Berlin. There's more, like
Paris,
Seattle, San Francisco, and we're going to Zurich. I don't know how to say that in English, but Zurich in Switzerland in January with the game as well.
Oh, nice. Well, I guess what's else coming up? EGX Rest? I guess that's a little bit too long past your release date.
Yeah, we were at part of the Left Field collections at EGX in Birmingham earlier this year.
Oh yeah, in August.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, EGX is one of the bigger ones we have here in Europe, so that's a good one to attend.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, cool to see the different events and see how different they all are as well.
Oh yeah. The big one I usually attend is Gamescom, but that is, on the business side, extremely professional and extremely busy.
Yeah, and the other thing I was disappointed about was I was seeing the pictures and some of the stuff that G was posting from Gamescom, and being that I got a chance to go for the first time both to E3 and PAX West this year, they didn't have beer tents. They didn't have some of the really cool food. It was actually pretty disappointing on the food side of things.
We found like such a cool restaurant when we were at PAX. We went to the same restaurant. It was like a fast food place, I think. And we were there every lunch, every dinner for like the week we were there or something. Yeah, it was very adventurous people. We try to make adventurous games, but not adventurous.
We actually do that a lot. In Berlin, we have this specific restaurant we go all the time.
Yeah.
And then when we were in Hamburg, we only went to one restaurant.
Oh, that's true. Really, probably missing out, but
yeah.
It's so nice to know what food we get.
I had that earlier today, literally. I was talking to a publisher that we might do something in Kortrijk. There's the One-Up conference coming in February. And for anybody listening, that's worth attending. That seems like it'll be really good. Mm-hmm. But they started, so you're in Belgium, you can be a guide and show us all the good bars and restaurants. Not in Kortrijk, no. Yeah, let's not just go to the Friet court every single night. Let's find some proper foods.
We should find guides at these places. And we usually know people at the places we're going to, but then maybe they actually are the ones that recommend one place, and then we're like, oh, this is so good, why risk it and go somewhere else?
Yeah, I think particularly Gamescom, I just went to the same place as well. They made really good German sausages, why go somewhere else?
Awesome, exactly. I would completely understand you.
But Drac, looking at the topic, should we get into that question?
I was just going to say that we somehow naturally segued into food. Not quite sure how that happened, but, since we're there. We have a question that we like to ask every one of our guests. Is just kind of a fun thing to end the episode on. And that is, what kind of bacon do you like? How do you like it prepared? And what kind of beverage would you pair with said bacon, be it beer, cider, or any other beverage?
Very good question, because, I'm a vegetarian, so no bacon for me, but it is the thing that I miss the most, and the smell is really good. And then if one night I was eating meat before, and then I was just like, you could make bacon in a sandwich press. That was so good, if you haven't tried this. And then beer is wonderful, but then I pick I don't know, is Carlsberg a thing? Is that everywhere? Is that page? Yes. It's everywhere. Yeah, Carlsberg.
Probably the best beer in the world.
I agree. Yes. And Tanja, what about you?
Yes, so I'm the same as Mira. I also don't eat meat. But I have looked a lot at the seaweed bacon. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I really want to try it. I really want to try how it tastes like. And so I would grab that bacon, and then maybe I would a cider. Seaweed bacon and a cider, and on a sunny day.
Say we had Frank, was it Frank from Atomic? No, some of the local, if I can speak, some of the local companies, game devs. One of them was also vegetarian. We agreed that we will set up a meet and greet where we can do some literally seaweed bacon, because it actually looks like it could be good.
I think it looks good. Yeah, we want to join.
I'll see if I can find a link, because there's a local company here who makes it and then ships it all over Europe.
Ah, that's really cool. Yeah.
I would say I'm sorry, Drac?
I was just going to say, I'm a big carnivore and I love me my bacon, but I am curious about the seaweed bacon just to see how it tastes. So at some point I may have to try that myself.
Make an episode of just eating that. On seaweed bacon. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, might get some interesting facial reactions.
Nice.
We'll have to do an event where, one of the game conferences will just set up a small stand with seaweed bacon so people can at least try it. We can get that topic closed.
Perfect. Good plan.
And I would say I agree with the Carlsberg. That used to be my go-to. Although if you're in Copenhagen now, Bryghus actually does some pretty good stuff.
Yeah, that's also good. I tried a beer with coriander there. That was very nice.
That could be pretty good. I don't think I've had that one. We used to have offices right above them, so that was a little bit difficult not drinking there.
Yeah, we're also really close to 𝑀𝒂𝒍𝒆𝒔 bar, which is another Danish brand. I don't know what we call it that, but yeah, they have really, really, really good beer as well.
Guess I'll have to try some next time I'm there. Anyways, that was the bacon and BS/cider question. Usually means everything's wrapping up. So, just to make sure we capture everything, the game's out in a beta right now. People who are listening can go to the Discord and ask for a beta key, if I understood correctly.
Correct. They can just DM me, Mira, and say they want a key, and I can give them either like a Steam key that you can play on Mac or PC, or an iOS version. So they're just called Other Tales on Discord.
We will include a link wherever we can in YouTube, Facebook, the podcast, iTunes. Look for a link to the Discord, go over and ask for a key. Then beyond that, game releases Q1. They won't tell it anymore. They're holding the details close. But I've definitely already hit it on wishlist on Steam, and anybody else who seemed to like it, go do the same, because I think this is going to be an experience.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, G and I had a lot of fun with it the short time we got to spend with it, and we were already talking about how it might be fun to switch it up and play with some of the other members of the show as well. So, or even, turn it over to our little ones and see how they manage to progress through. So definitely it's worth a look. Go check it out. As G mentioned, we'll have all of the links in the descriptions. And Tanja and Mira, thank you very much for joining us. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
The pleasure's all ours. And I guess, given the time of year, glædelig jul.
Glædelig jul. Glad jul. God jul. I tried to speak Swedish, but I forgot how. God jul.